All right, so Sony just dropped a bomb with their announcement of the Sony BURANO, and I need to talk about it. So most of you have probably already seen it, but it looks like an FX6 smashed together with a Sony Venice, which has obviously been a hugely popular camera for both TV and motion picture. So this system has me really excited with the image quality of the Cine Alta line with the flexibility of the FX line. I'm personally a really big fan of the small, rugged size, and there's a great new Sony monitor that comes with the camera with access to controls and what Sony's calling the Big Six, and that includes frame rate, exposure index, shutter angle, ND, LUTs, and white balance. There are plenty of mounting options so that you can use it like a regular monitor on the operator side or even on the assistant side in a more traditional crew configuration. It looks like you do have to rotate the monitor sideways to use the included loop, so you can't just easily flip it up and down like the FX9, but I'm sure there will be some sort of third-party solution available in the future. I/O is more or less the same as the FX9 with two SDI ports, HDMI, timecode, as well as Genlock, and it also has XLR ports. And this is huge for a lot of my corporate and documentary interviews when we're piping audio directly into the camera. It also looks like the perfect size for solo operators and run and gun filmmakers, and it's about 2 pounds heavier than a FX body alone. In terms of the sensor, the BURANO has an 8.6K full-frame sensor with color science that's derived from the Venice 2. You can record 8.6K full-frame at up to 30 frames per second, a 6K full-frame crop at up to 60 frames per second, and then a 4K Super 35 crop at up to 120 frames per second. So it almost feels like a little bit of a grown-up FX9 with similar cropping modes in relation to the recording format. Most of you know that on the FX9, you have to go into the 5K center scan to access a lot of the higher frame rates, and that similar sentiment seems to hold true with the BURANO. It's curious that the Super 35 crop is only available in a DCI aspect ratio right now, but I imagine a 16:9 aspect ratio will be available in a future firmware update. I'm really glad there's still a high resolution Super 35 mode because honestly, I use it all the time on the FX9. And to be honest, I never liked the Super 35 option on the FX6 because of the steep quality drop off. So I've literally never used it. So if I ever have to use Super 35 lenses, I always opt to use the FX9. You can shoot XO-CN LT, which is the lower end of Sony's RAW codec, and I believe Sony didn't include ST and XT flavors due to a limitation of the CF Express Type B cards, which is still an improvement over the smaller Type A cards, and I'm still really happy Sony went with Type B cards as they're more readily available from other brands like SanDisk and Angelbird, as well as being much more affordable. I've heard that there's a noticeable difference in quality going from ST to LT on the regular Venice, so it'll be interesting to see how the BURANO fares with LT at its top end, but even that still offers more image quality over the XAVC format that I'm used to with the FX9 and FX6. This raw codec is great for mid to low budget projects or even documentary applications where you need the longer run times. Speaking of XAVC, there's a new XAVC HI codec that uses H.265 to record 8K compressed, which is super interesting. I can honestly care less about the 8K resolution, but there are some oversampling options with regular XAVC-I and can downsize all the way down to 1080p if you need to. Another huge feature is the addition of IBIS so that you can stabilize your footage even when you're using PL lenses, which is amazing and pretty unheard of for a cinema camera. I'm not sure how much I would personally use it since sometimes IBIS can look a little warpy and the body already has enough heft to it, I feel, to smooth out a lot of that handheld motion jitter. But I could see this being super useful on longer lenses to really smooth out that jitter. It has the variable ND found in the FX9 and FX6, which makes it super versatile, but I did notice a fair amount of IR pollution in CVP's videos, so I might not discount using traditional optical IR NDs in front of the lens quite yet, and is probably my still preferred method of using NDs so long as I have, a proper crew and obviously a matte box. Probably what's most exciting for me is the lens mount. The lens mount is carried over from the Venice with the removable PL mount behind a lever locking E mount, which supports autofocus. And I can't understand how exciting this is, and is without a doubt what I'm most excited for this camera because of how adaptable E mount is, as well as being able to use all my Sony glass for smaller jobs that don't necessarily require a big PL mount lens or cinema glass. Over the years, I've collected nearly all the G Master lenses, and knowing that I'll still be able to use them on what's basically a baby Venice with autofocus is amazing. So there were some other tidbits that I noticed. It looks like that you can still burn in looks, which is great because a fair amount of my jobs do still require a Rec 709 look out of the camera, which is right out at the gate eliminates the Mini LF or the Venice. So having that option is very, very nice to have. The V-mount back is still really annoying, but I feel like we've already kind of gotten used to it with the Venice, and I'll probably still end up getting some sort of D-box or replacement battery plate for gold mount batteries. And then third, I really, really, really hope that playback does not suck like it does on the FX6 and FX9. Scrubbing through playback is easily one of the most frustrating experiences on those cameras, and it just constantly drives me up the wall. Hopefully it will use the touchscreen in some capacity, but I'm not holding my breath. All right, so for the big question, am I getting one? Yes. This camera seems like the perfect option for owner-operators like myself, with all of the camera controls readily accessible from the operator side, and the price point makes it an excellent option for mid to low budget jobs that can't quite afford an Alexa, but still want excellent image quality. I know this isn't a replacement for the FX9, but it does solve a lot of my gripes with that camera system, particularly with autofocus and frame rates. I was an early adopter of the FX9, and it definitely had its growing pains, but it's made me a lot of money over the past 3 years. So it's had a great ROI as my primary camera for a lot of my work here in Vegas. And at this point, I'm happy to upgrade them to something that solves a lot of my small grievances from that camera. If I'm on a job that absolutely requires 2 matching bodies, I still have 2 FX6s and 2 FX3s, which still punch way above their weight class. And for higher end work, the Alexa is still available. My plan is to sell both of my FX9s, so if you're in the market to upgrade, I'll probably be listing them sometime in the next few months. It doesn't look like the BURANO is shipping until earlier next year, so it'll probably be some time before I actually get my hands on one. The price point definitely seems a little high for $25,000, and for that I expect XOCN ST and maybe a proper EVF rather than the lousy loop option, but past all that, for what you're getting, it's an exciting time to be in the Sony ecosystem.